Hello, hello. Welcome back to Adobe Live. This is a live stream that has been in the back pocket for a little while, and we pulled it out last minute. I'm joined by Melanie Daveid. We're going to be going through some Illustrator basics. Welcome everyone who's joining. We are live streaming on YouTube and on Behance, and if you want to come and join us over on Behance, you can join in the live stream tabs, and we'll get the chat up and running. And yeah, we will be active in the community. I know there may be some technical difficulties happening with people not being able to send messages, but we know that there's always a great community watching and joining. I could probably take a guess at who might be there. But anyway, Melanie, welcome back to Adobe Live. This is our first stream together. It's exciting. Can't
It
believe it's
is.
been
I'm
so
so
long.
happy. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here on the UK channel today. Excited, a little nervous. As you mentioned before, we've been playing this for quite a while, but finally, it's a day and a time where we can talk about Illustrator basics, something we haven't seen for a while, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Fun fact, Illustrator was the very first application I started with Adobe. Um, Back when I would have been, actually, how old would I have been? About 11, 12 maybe. Um, my brother got an eMac, and he was at college doing graphic design, and that kind of inspired me on, like, "Ooh, what is this Mac? What can we do here?" And yeah, Illustrator was the first thing I played around with, and then first on that was the pen tool, and I just ran away with it and went into all sorts of other things. So I've got a lot of love for Illustrator, and yeah, there's so much that makes me happy about it, and I know that there's so much more that I need to know about it. So uh, I'm hoping you'll share some good insights, and maybe I've had some really terrible bad practices from the very start that you might break me away from. So yeah,
I've seen a couple of streams with you, so you're fine. But I'm glad you're here and you saw Illustrator before, because in case I ever get stuck, you can help me. That's perfect. Perfect starting point for this stream. Maybe, as we mentioned, it's Illustrator basics for beginners today. So anyone who used Illustrator before will probably know about the pen tool, the brushes, the pencil tool, how to use shapes and some effects. But we will still dive into this today because there's always something people miss out on, and I definitely missed out on. So we will have a look at that. We will cover, as mentioned, a couple of effects and just maybe try to have something like a poster at the very end. You can see it in the preview now already, with the very basic shapes recreate in this hour. Maybe at the beginning, what is Illustrator good for? Definitely branding, logo design, anything that uses vector shapes. So Illustrator is a vector-based tool. The opposite of that would be a pixel-based tool. Pixel-based tools are based on pixels, those small dots we know. Vectors are basically mathematical calculations of lines and points, which means they're endlessly and infinitely scalable, which is always good if you have something like a poster that needs to be really, really large, or brand design that needs to work on different applications. Joe, since you've done this before and you said the pen tool was the first one you dived into, that's probably something we will do too, because if we think about Illustrator, and I will now create a new file or a new artboard here, what we usually do here is we first decide if you want to construct something or if you want to paint in Illustrator. If you want to construct something, you will probably use geometric shapes, the pen tool, which we can find here, and somehow construct it out of maybe circles, rectangles, squares. If you want to paint it, you would use the brush tool. And then there's the pencil tool, which is somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start at the very big. You have a question? Yes.
We've already got mentions. So the chat is up and running on Behance. So thanks for Emma for jumping in on the back end, getting that all run. Who is also loving the colors. And I agree, seeing this straight up. I always find it interesting when you see someone's work and you can know whose work it is based on the colors themselves. And this immediately, maybe it's because I think you used it in Avatar somewhere, but just immediately looking at it, I'm like, I know that's Melanie's work. And Yeah, just shows up straight away. Like that's such a strong place to be. If you can shout who you are with a color, you can kind of do anything. You can be on mute for the rest of your life and just show the visuals, show the audio. Audio is
I'm
visible.
really happy to hear that.
Um,
Those are my absolute favorite colors I work with. We will not dive into color choices and selections today. It's just something I personally really like. I would always prefer black and white, but if I have to choose colors, then it's those two, maybe a bit of yellow, a bit of green, but that's it. And
yeah,
then we basically have all colors you could use, but those two are the favorite ones. But let's get back to Illustrator, because I opened this now and I prepared something. If you start from scratch, you basically see in this window here where you can use templates and pre-selected options for artboards. Print, mobile, web, whatsoever, pretty much anything to discover here, and also some templates. It gets interesting here with the orientation, if it's a landscape or portrait mode, but of course also which color mode it is. If you design for screens, you would go for RGB. Otherwise, for print, for example, you would use CMYK. I always like to start with RGB because this is mainly for the digital applications, and also the colors are more vibrant than with CMYK, of course. You would have the size here, in which resolution you have your file. 300 is for print. Anything smaller would work for digital screens too, but I would always suggest to go for 300, even if we work with vector graphics, we can scale them anyway. We have the tiniest file and scale it up. So you're always safe in Illustrator.
I found as well with the latest generations of Macs and everything, it's those types of settings. Previously, people would kind of shy about like, oh, do I want to go 300 if you're, doing massive vectors and high resolutions. These days, I don't even worry. Like it's never even a concern. I've got plenty of other concerns in the world, and 300 DPI is not one of them. That is the safe version of Jay-Z's hit track, of course.
Of course, you're right, absolutely right, and especially Illustrator is very easy on file size and everything. If you would do this in Photoshop, for example, you would still consider the size, but we're safe here. And we're now in Illustrator. This is the starting point. Well, basically, you would have a white artboard, but that's the starting point. On the left side here, you see all kinds of tools you could use. Once you select them, you have a contextual menu on the right side. Let us have a look maybe at a first. Let's just create a circle.
Japan.
Just for you, Joe. I usually I'm hosting here, so I would now say, go back to the streams we did 2 weeks ago and watch all the streams that showed it with fixed rise. Super cool about Japan, but I'm a guest here today and I'm supposed to teach Illustrator, so let's see.
Sorry, I'm just throwing distractions all over.
Yeah, you are. I'm completely off. Circles. So we selected something like a circle, and we see the contextual menu on the right side. You have properties here, which shows you again the size of the circle, how it appears, if it's filled or if it has a stroke, for example, opacity. You can set alignment and whatsoever. This is just an example, because for any tool you would select here on this side, and any object you create, you have this contextual menu on the right side. Anyone who used Adobe tools before knows that there are layers. So even in Illustrator, you can and should layer your files, especially, for example, if you want to, I don't know, export them to After Effects later on. It helps to organize the illustration or the file you have, and it's pretty easy. You can just layer as much as you'd like there.
So that's actually a quick one for me. I never got involved in using layers until I started using Photoshop a few years after I used Illustrator. And that is a habit that has stuck with me for Illustrator. I barely ever create layers. I maybe do like an artwork one, a text one, and that's maybe about it. And I know that goes against every other grain in my body on organization. Where do you find you need to create a new layer? Like, for what reason would you make a new layer versus not having a new layer and working on existing?
Pretty much anything you do for yourself. you don't have to care about layers at all. If it's
Right.
not too complex, the illustrations we see here, not too complex, you always know what to select, what to go for, easy.
Yeah.
You don't need layers. If it's going into the direction of a very complex illustration, we've seen that, for example, with Julia in the past, who showed a lot of complex illustrations here, or Birgit Palmer, you would definitely need layers, because otherwise you will not find your way around. And the last thing is, of course, if you ever think about animating your illustrations or your designs, then of course you would need that too for After Effects, for example. And there it's really important to know what you're going to animate, because according to the animation, you would create your layers. But I think that might be a little too advanced for today, and something Robert Ranitsky, I think, showed really well in previous streams.
Okay, cool.
So we have this basic understanding of the navigation here. In addition to tools, plus all kinds of alignments you could do, you have the effects up here, which you could use, of course, objects and whatsoever. I know it sounds simple, but I would always suggest to just go through it, create something very, very simple, or something, rebuild something someone else did, and just explore. If you're done exploring, and I mentioned this before, you have the options to construct your artwork, or you brush or paint it. Depending on the tools you have around, for example, if you have a Cintiq, a vacuum Cintiq here, then you could use a brush or a real pen and just draw things. If you don't have that around, if you're just maybe stuck with mouse or a trackpad, you could use, for example, this tool here, and just redraw a sketch. Let's maybe go for it. I will go for the F and just show maybe 3 different versions to create this. So as mentioned before, vector tool, everything is based on dots and lines that are connected. Now we have a great color choice already, so I'll switch to the blue one. And you can see here you have anchor points, which are connected with lines. And those anchor points are pretty much editable as much as you'd like to. The shortcut for this one is P, and with A, you select the anchor points. With Shift and C, you would be able to edit them and arrange them however you need them. But let's see how fast I can draw this F with the pen tool. So we would have this one here, go up here, and as you see, you push the mouse or the trackpad and you drag the anchor point, which creates the line. And the crazier you go with it, the stronger the curves are.
It's nice as well that these days you get a preview of where the vector is going. A few years back, it used to be you kind of had to know the tool to know where it was likely to go.
That's a very long time ago, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of, I don't know how to dig myself out of that hole of not using Illustrator a huge amount in recent years. We've got mentions in the chat, by the way, that it's lovely to see you in the guest position again. It's been a while, and in fact, definitely on the UK stream. You've done a lot of German streams.
Very true, yeah. It's been ages, and it's really good to be back and see some familiar faces in the chat. So I started drawing this now with the pen tool, and as you see, I didn't do a really good job because the F here is all a little too pointy. I want to have round shapes. So what I do now is I selected this shape I created, and then I can press Command and Y, and then you would see just the outlines, which always helps to see what's going on in the background a little better. And I see that I can edit the points and lines here. So I would push Shift C again and drag the points to a point, see repetition points and points, just however I need them. And we go back to the color folder. Of course, I will try to be a little faster here today and don't spend too much time on the details, but you can spend a proper amount of time to do those things just the way your sketches are, and just repaint them or construct them with the pen tool.
Mm-hmm.
Another option would be, no, please go ahead, your question.
I say, Karina's in the chat saying, go wild with Illustrator. Let your hair down. Get the pen tool out. Chuck it all about.
Karina is actually a good, Karina listened very carefully today because the private sessions where you were getting really expensive from today on, Karina had a couple of questions last time, and in some cases I was able to help, which was very good to see. So
okay,
the first thing,
listening then. Turn the volume up. This is always available on replay if ever you need.
Yes, that's very right. So first, pen tool, we reconstructed this. I'm of course having it a little easier because I've done this a couple of times. If you start out, it might be difficult, but it takes patience as always, and then it's pretty easy too. Another option would be to just construct. We go for the L now, for flow, so construct it out of geometric shapes. In that case, we would use rectangles. Again, it's very straightforward. It's just the abstraction of something you see. I will leave it to the straight one now. To the straight L, or should we? No, let's move it so it has the same. Right. Again, I'm just selecting anchor points and moving them around.
So this is with the direct selection, the white arrow.
Yeah. So you have two options. This one selects pretty much the whole object. And if you have A, you can select separate points here. Good question, actually, because if you use this one, you can also round the corners by dragging this little dot here. That's what I love about Illustrator. You have those small features that are slightly hidden, but once you know them, they're really making your work more efficient.
Mm-hmm. And you've got the option in the menu bar if you want to type in a specific radius as well.
Yes, we switch back gears one. Let me show that. We have the little dots here. You can go wild if you don't need specific ones. But if you would like to use it here, you got me here now. I can't find it anymore. Ah, no.
It would be in. Have you got the corner selected, or have you got the object selected?
I have the corner selected.
So if you go,
it should be here.
Click into the little grabby bit to make it curvature. We've got in the menu bar at the top, you've got your corners.
Ah, it's hidden. Ah, you know why it's hidden? Because I use Zoom. And that's why I couldn't see it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an interface that you guys can't see.
Well, it's there. There are tons of options to make round corners in Illustrator. Those are the most, they're proper round corners and they have a proper rounded shape. They're a perfect Bezier curve, basically. If you have to draw it yourself, like I did here, you see that the corners might not be perfectly round. We can have a look at that. And if we just here, if we have a look here, we see that the circle does not align perfectly, but it would be the case if we place it here.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on the style you're using and on the tools you prefer. But of course, using the rounded corners tool is the best option if you want to have perfectly rounded corners.
Mm-hmm. And you'll notice even that because you've skewed the shape, it's actually a slightly different curvature or sort of size of the corner to the top left and the bottom and the top right one, which just does it auto-magically for you.
Yes, it does. A lot of things in Illustrator are just there to make your life easier and the workflow easier, but you have to discover them and practice a little.
Mm-hmm.
Stating the obvious here, at the very end of the stream, you can say, thank you, Melanie, Captain Obvious, for pointing those things out. But if you've never used Illustrator before, yeah, only at the end. If you've never used Illustrator before, it might be a little tricky. So use the pen tool. we constructed it out of shapes, the L, which was a very easy one. I think my favorite letter to construct is maybe the B or the A, because you would combine circles, rectangles, and really figure out how they fit together perfectly, depending on the type you would like to write or whatsoever.
Yep. You know, A is my favorite character, and that's not because it's in my surname. But the difference between uppercase and lowercase is, I think, one of the biggest contrasts of all of the characters. Like it goes from very geometric to very rounded, and then you've got different options if you want, you know, different styles of things. I think A is brilliant. So start the alphabet and we're done. A is good.
Sounds like we should do how to draw custom letters in Illustrator at some point.
Yeah, one stream, A, done. That's it.
Yeah. But that's one of the issues a lot of people struggle with when they do the 36 days of type. They start with the A, they love it so much, they just stop. They never finish it. And I'm sure they are both, they are all the same A lovers as you are. There's no other reason.
I've actually got a mug. I don't have it with me, but it's got a big A on it, and I love it. It's one of my best mugs.
Did you get it because of the A or because it's also your name?
I got it for the A. It's a pure typographical reasoning. And if anyone questions, I can judge the nerdy level and be like, okay, are they on board with the typography, or can I just say, oh, it's my name, and can get away with it either way.
Interesting. What's the favorite font?
Come back to you on that. Depends on the context.
Okay. Oh, that's the reason why there are different fonts. The context changes. So we constructed it, pen tool. Now we go to the brush tool. And I think there are a trillion more things I should talk about when it comes to the pen tool, but we go to the brush tool, construct this, and then might go back to the pen tool. But let's have another look at the pen, brush tool, and pencil tool. So you're getting confused with all the brushes already. Let's start with, there are 3 brushes available. So we have the paintbrush, the block brush, and the pencil tool. Let's maybe start with the pencil tool. Yeah, let's start with the pencil tool. So I'm going to draw this on the trackpad. That's why it might be a little too shaky, but I'm very confident I can do this.
Well, Emma's already suggested renaming the stream to Let Loose on AI. So, trackpad pencil, that's wild. Pushing the boundaries here.
Did you really say let loose on what? On what?
On Illustrator, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is also a reminder that coming up, Adobe Live is going to be at Off Festival, which I believe is next week. Melanie, you're going to be there. Unfortunately, I'm not, which gutted about. I've always wanted to go to Off. So I trust you'll have a wild experience running around all the different stands and meeting all the amazing creatives that are going to be there. There'll be live streams every day, I believe, from 1 till 6, with all of your favorite, except for me, of course, Adobe Live hosts who will be there. And yeah, it will be a wonderful experience with plenty of back-to-back streams. I'm going to be joining remotely, and yeah, that will be next week from Barcelona.
It will be so wild, and I'm so excited. But at the same time, very sorry you can't join this time. But it's probably a good thing that you have a lot of other things to do. So there's more time for watching the live streams for you, which is always good.
Yeah.
See, can't talk about off without just dragging me completely off my plan to show Illustrator here. I should have sent you my notes so you can give me hints on where I stopped.
We were looking at the pencil tool.
Yeah.
And
I use the pens.
Went a bit wild with the trackpad.
Yeah, it's not too wild. I think it's pretty cool. So I use the pencil tool to draw this, or you can barely see it because, well, the pencil tool not always starts with a fill or a stroke. What you can do is you can select a fill or a stroke here, or you push the E and select, for example, a color of another object you already have there. E is the shortcut for, well, picking the same color, picking the same style. It's pretty much the same in all the Adobe tools. And we have this one here, and that's where we already, now it's the worst combination ever because we have a blue object plus blue anchor points. So let's quickly change that. And maybe switch to, please let me switch the color.
Can you right click on it?
On it.
Hold control and click maybe?
Nah, we're not doing this. We're changing the color. I'm giving up on Illustrator here. Yeah. Okay, let's change the color to red. What I did now without, well, I was super panicky about finding this right thing, is I did hide the anchor points, which you can bring back with Command H. So they are hidden and back there. In case you lose some kind of helping guideline there, you will always find everything back in view. And then you can, for example, say smart guides, which is the help on the positioning. Whenever you move them, they will show you how to align objects to each other perfectly.
Yeah.
There's also the hide bounding box, which always surrounds the whole object. And as I mentioned before, there's the anchor points, which you can hide and bring back with Command H.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you shared the Command Y for outlines earlier. That's one of the most useful views for Illustrator. Just helps you get an understanding of where you've got things. Because sometimes you end up with a load of white objects on a white pasteboard and you don't realize it. And they're hidden all over.
Yep. And especially if you have very detailed illustrations, it's helpful to find back where you just stopped. And also, vector shapes should always be closed. Speaking of, this is a closed vector shape. You can, by selecting A again, select separate anchor points and remove them, which means you don't have a closed shape anymore. It doesn't, I mean, if it's your own thing, it doesn't really matter. But in some cases, for example, if you would get it stitched on somewhere, or if you would import it to Lottie files, animation for websites, then you would need closed lines. And also, if you have a look here, the shape does not perform as expected if you don't have closed shapes. You can see that here. If we switch between outlines and filled shapes, you see the difference.
Yeah.
And also, if you use later on effects and everything, it's always helpful to have a closed shape if you can.
So how would we go about closing an open shape?
So you would, there are various options again. We now removed it with A, selected it, and just removed it with just delete. There are other options. And then there we close the circle again to the pen here. You have different options here too. The anchor point tool is how you align your Bézier curves. But if you click, for example, plus, you would be able to add another anchor point, or if you have a minus, you would be able to remove it, as you can see here. So that's the other option. This does not break the shape. If you did break the shape though, like we did at the very beginning, you can select 2 points and combine them again with Command J for join. In that case, it would look like that. So if you ever have the option to add a dot or an anchor point, use the pen tool to add it here, because, wait, add it here, because it does not change the shape itself. It just adds another anchor point. If you want to remove one, it's very smart. It already switches to the minus. Do it also with the pen tool because it does not break your shape.
Excellent.
Do you also know what we do if you have too many anchor points in a shape? Because it's sometimes, especially if you use the pen tool, Illustrator just goes wild and adds as many anchor points as possible. It might make the shape more smooth, but sometimes they're really not necessary or make it more bubbly than it should be. If you import files from Illustrator from the iPad, this is rather important because on iPad, the shapes are constructed out of a lot of anchor points, which is not always necessary. But you can easily simplify the path by clicking, doing a right click, simplify, and then you will see this navigation here. Anything you ever look for, just look in the navigation or do a right click and you will find whatever you need. As you can see here, we can now decide how detailed the anchor points should be and how detailed the shape should stick to how we initially designed it.
So if you go for a more complex one, is that adding more anchor points, or is the very right option your original path?
No. So there are various options. There is the option to add anchor points, and there's the option to remove anchor points, because sometimes you have too many, as I mentioned before, to have a proper Bezier curve, which is usually constructed out of 2 points in a line. Mm-hmm. But you can say you want to simplify the curve here, but you can also say how the anchor points should react and how many there should be. The easiest option is to go to auto simplify, and it will do the trick for you in many cases, but not always. You can also say you want to convert things to straight lines, show the original path to see the offset. There are plenty of options. And of course, there's the preview, which helps. I will cancel this one out because I was pretty happy with my O here. With the blob. It's an O.
That's how Karina's been calling it in the chat. Blob.
Karina.
Welcome to the chat.
Yeah, it is a blob. It misses something to make it look like an O. Let's maybe do that now. Because whenever we have... What?
We need the counter. The center bit. The hole.
No.
The O hole.
Yes. There's a way from prop to... Yeah. Brain switched off for a second. We can use the eraser tool, which is the easiest way to get this little blob in a blob. For that case, you would have to select the object and then you can just draw it in there. Another option would be, oh no, now I already cut it out, but we delete it again. Another option would of course be to use again the ellipse tool, which is not as bad as expected, but works. It's actually, I'm undecided. Maybe the ellipse tool is even a little better than the erased part.
Googly eyes happening here.
Yeah, it's more visible or more readable.
Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying both, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I'm undecided. I will just get the googly eyes going on for you here. The thing is, when we use the eraser tool, we see that there's already a hole in the shape. We cut it out. But with the circle, we just added it on top. This is this is not an issue at all in Illustrator because there are plenty of options to just cut this piece out. Let's have a look at the Pathfinder before we then hop over to the other brush options that are there. Pathfinder is something you can find on the right side here again, or on Window, and then you would scroll down, find it, and activate it. Pathfinder has various options to combine or, well, subtract shapes from each other. You have shape modes here, and of course, Pathfinder is, well, I will just show you that's the best way to do it. It pretty much defines how objects and shapes react to each other. You would usually select both of them. If you would use the first one, you would combine them. This means this is one shape, you go for one color, the other thing is just melted in. Mm-hmm. This one here is the minus front, which means it removes the front. We see there's immediately transparency. That's what we're looking for. The other option would just cut out pieces, depending on what you're looking for. And the same as the last one here. Even after using Illustrator for many years, I sometimes click the wrong one. It's always a trial and error thing.
I was actually just amazed how you were describing what it was going to do before it actually did it, because every single time I use this, I'm like, I maybe click through 4 of them and I still never learn. It's usually the minusing a shape from something. When, I mean, I got in a muddle on this on a live stream with Karina, of all people, and Emma, and I was just looking internally at it, not realizing that I had strokes on my objects and other stuff, and I just couldn't get my head around it. So the way that you just described that then, the first 3, made perfect sense, and yeah, on a roll there. So
yeah, I
appreciate that.
At some point you remember, but you mentioned a very important thing. This works with shapes that are filled. It doesn't work with outlines. It works in some way with outlines, but not always, and especially not in a combination. But that's something everyone will figure out. So I showed you the options now, but there's something hidden in the Pathfinder, because you can, of course, just click on it. But if you select both and you click Option and then use this one, the shape inside would still be editable.
Oh my God. I've never seen that.
Yes.
See, this is what I wanted. I've never seen that before. That is mad and very useful. So you got an immediate clipping mask.
Yes, proper.
Wow. Okay. No longer Captain Obvious. Thank you.
Yeah, proper excitement about this feature. It's pretty similar to clipping mask. Yes, a clipping mask is whenever you have a shape or a shape on top of another object or an image, and you pretty much flip the object towards the shape you initially had. So it's more or less visible or not visible. It's probably a horrible explanation of a clipping mask. I usually don't explain clipping masks. They are really very straightforward. They are also accessible via the right click here. So you can just select both, of course, and then you would say create clipping mask.
My mind is genuinely blown. This is something that I've wanted for ages and just never properly searched for, I guess. Maybe I didn't want it that much. But to just hold Option and click it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a habit of holding Option clicking on stuff in applications just to know if there's an alternate one. Never done it on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm really happy I was able to tell you something new, because I know you're really nerdy with all tools, and it's but let's go back to Illustrator. What we see here are pretty much filled shapes. What we're going to do now is we will create the W at the very end by using the paintbrush. And we go for the paintbrush tool. And I will again draw that, because then we will see immediately the difference. Oh no, I'm stuck. Where did I want to go with the W? Not as intended, especially not the second part. Now I'm getting lost with the Command Z. I did not mention that Command Z is going one step back, but Command Z, Command C, and Command V and Command B are, I think, the copy, paste, copy, insert, paste in place shortcuts. really bad. I told everyone it's a beginner's course, and I forget the most important things. So Command C, copy,
Well, I
Command.
think, as you mentioned at the start, there is an assumption that people know, some element of the pen tool and bit of the interface, and yeah, progressing around that. I mean, I think the value in holding Option on the Pathfinder is massive. Sell that as a course, make millions. I'll claim
Yeah,
the royalties.
maybe. Unfortunately, there's this how's the platform called where you upload those really short videos that you're not onto? TikTok, where people do this all the time. So maybe it's finally time to join TikTok to learn all those small things in 10 seconds. So we have the W here. I will use the pen tool because you can, of course, no matter which tool you use, mix and match them as you need to align it. I have the W now. We go a bit closer. And we see this is not a shape. This is an outline. I can change it here, switch back and forth, and this is also not a closed path. Again, cool for animation, but at the moment, it's not nothing we talk about, but works really well. If you have this outline now, you have a bunch of options how to work with them. First of all, we go again to the properties. You can change their appearance. Double click on the stroke, and you can say you want to have a cap that's round, one that has one that's round, one that has a corner. You can, of course, also say if it has an arrowhead or whatsoever. It's pretty straightforward. If it's a dashed line, you will figure out. But the details you find here. The most important thing is whenever you scale this one, depending on what kind of options I selected before, you see the stroke always has the same stroke width. So it's always 1 pixel. If you click on this little area down here, you get additional options for your stroke width. And you can say if you want to scale those depending on the size of the object. So I will edit now, and we see that it's
nice.
It remains the same. And if we turn it off, it should get really thin. Yeah. That's something that really helps when you work on icons, for example, or on brand design, because, well, your logo won't be the same with the same outline if it's a lot smaller, but really has thick and heavy outlines. So it's usually worth activating this one, and also for the corners, because if you, for example, have, like we've seen before, rounded corners, you scale them, it gets more edgy than it was initially. So those two are usually a good thing to click.
And that can also be an overall global preference as well, right? In Illustrator, you can set that for the default of new objects versus doing it object by object.
Definitely, yeah. Good point. I never thought about this, yes, but this is it's the default for all objects, and helps to just keep things aligned, because it was one of the most frustrating things when I started to design icons. You don't know about this, you scale them, they're just broken. So this is really helpful.
Emma's enjoying the stream, saying that apparently we're hilarious on stream together. I'm having a lot of fun. She's like, wish we could be live for 5 hours today. Well, Emma, we almost could be if I forget how to turn it off.
I don't have any more plans for today. So let's just keep going and see when I get stuck with my Illustrator tips. Let's go to the other brush options quickly. So this one was the regular paintbrush. Create outlines immediately. Blob brush means you create, as Karina called it, a blob. If we switch back to the outline mode, we see that we actually created a shape. So it's not an outline, but a shape. That's the main difference between the brush tool and the blob brush tool. Both of them are really helpful, especially if you create your own brushes. Then the blob brush tool might be more helpful.
Hold on, sorry, is it legitimately called the blob brush tool? Because we were just talking about we were just talking about that in the chat, saying can't wait for Scott to present the like the direct blob selection tool.
Yeah,
There's
it
already a
is.
blob brush.
And
Wow. I have to
the
find a
example
keynote for
shows
when that was
shows
announced.
your in the example shows your favorite fruit, the pretzel. Impressive. So the last thing we have here, and we quickly used it, is the pencil tool. And the pencil tool is, again, as I mentioned, pretty much the in-between state between the brush, which is super flexible, and the construction one. Because the pencil tool has a couple of options which are really cool when it comes to its behavior, pretty much. I will move it over here. So what you can see here is I created this brush, but it's not this stroke. And even if I go a little crazy, it somehow makes the line I draw a little bit more accurate, or it's just smoothing it. It's smoothing it out, the anchor points. So if we go to very smooth, we will see that even if I draw very nice in the presentation and it doesn't work, we will see it just adapts the brush. Maybe I did not. Yeah, it makes the anchor points a little smoother. And that's something you can edit here and select here. The other cool thing is that you can say the brush or the pen, God, I'm mixing it up. The pencil should always close the shape you use within a certain amount of pixels. This means if you have a circle and you end it here and you have selected just this pixel amount in between, it would still close the shape, even if you're not really close to each other, which is very cool in case you're looking for closed shapes and very detailed illustrations where you might use. So this does it automatically. The default setting is 6 pixels, which works really fine for me. As we see here, the brush is a little bit more fluffy than the pencil. The pencil always comes in the basic, basic stroke shape that's there. Since I talk about brushes, there are other options, and many people don't like Illustrator because the brushes are just too slick and too clean, and they really like textured brushes. If you use the brush settings here, you can see that there are plenty of other options. There are calligraphy options, but also the ones where you can go really crazy and have a lot of texture on them.
Nice.
The other cool thing with brushes is you can create your own ones simply by creating a shape, scanning, I don't know, some texture, and then you can just drag and drop it into the brush library here, and it will be your own brush. Not going into detail here, but if we, for example, let's use this one. If I just drag it here, I have brush options I can select from and just add them to the brush library. Again, feel free to discover. It's the brush tool can be fun. Okay, we have the brush, the pencil, we can edit the brush, we can just change it. The cool thing is we can, of course, combine outlines and shapes, which means even here on this outline, I could say I want to have this crazy brush and edit there. So for people who do not really like those very slick shapes, they can still edit them and make them a little bit more textured and more, I don't know, tactile maybe. So properties, make it a bit heavier. We have about 10 minutes left now. Let's have a look at some cool effects. It really annoys me that the W does not fit to the other cool letters we have here. Should we?
Well, we've got a transition of style as it flows. So, you know, as an art director, I'm happy with that. Looking over your shoulder. So yeah.
You're working with a really stubborn creative today. No chance you win this game.
In fairness, you didn't know you were doing this stream until a few minutes before, realistically. So this is fine by me. This is looking great.
You're a very kind art director. Why didn't we work on things before?
I'm not sure.
Dropping into the surprising feature drop in here. If you have something that you would like to transform, you just right click and say move, rotate, reflect, or whatsoever, and you can just do that. You have a preview there. You can twist and turn the things however you need them, and just create this quick transformation here. Let's see if this W makes me a little bit more happy.
Yeah, looking cool. On brand with the L.
Yeah, it's a little better. A little bit better. So, okay. It's still a little horrible though, but it's okay. Once you created well, your objects for your file, for your brand, and this could be, it's not perfect yet, but this could, for example, be a really nice logo, a type logo. You just select the bits and pieces you need and you create a brand out of it. But that's not the topic here today. If you think about related visuals you would need, and I would just copy and paste them down here. There are a couple of effects that might be handy for your design. Let's have a look at the F. Wait. Should we go back to the... No. Let's have a look at this one here. There are a couple of effects that might be useful. See, the clipping mask up here is getting me. I expanded the experience, which you can do up here. Expand experience or expand, which means the shape is just, well, reduced down to its initial or the visible form it is. So the clipping mask we had before is gone now, and I don't select it anymore. A couple of cool effects if you create this now, and let's just say we are searching for some kind of brand design. Really handy is always the repeat tool. With this one here, you would say object, repeat. As you see, there are plenty of effects here, and maybe we should do a stream with all of them separately because they help, again, to make the illustrations look a little less slick and a bit more crinkly maybe, and they have a bit of a texture to it.
Yep.
But if we say, yes.
Yeah, that feeling of using Illustrator for illustration is a vibe that I definitely struggle with, not being an illustrator. But it's the one thing I always admire when I see people doing digital vector work and illustrations is how it still has that really wholesome feel to it sometimes, that like natural handcraft, even though you're clearly doing it digitally. So yeah, I'm definitely up for the humanization of vector. There we go. There's your title.
Totally agree. And that's something I'm still learning. There are people who are just experts in this and do such a great job. This is really just the beginning. Whilst you mentioned your admiration for Illustrator, I created this repeat shape. I used the repeat shape feature. How can you say it? I created this. Is it a mandala? I don't know. This repeated shape, and it's a really cool effect for for graphics that are very simplistic, but it works with pretty much anything. That's the first cool thing, and really useful for brand design, creation of patterns, or something that's geometrically aligned.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I'll use this little heart here up now. Another cool thing is the blend tool. It pretty much, and I see I have different colors in here. Oh my God.
Good spot. May not show on the stream, so.
Sure, you can't even see that maybe. Oh. Yeah, it was just off. Let's imagine we want to have maybe a smooth transition from this shape to that shape, then we can use this tool up here, which is called the blend tool. And we just combine those two, and we see they're somehow connected now. Again, vector shapes, anchor points, lines, that's what we have in here. The cool thing happens if we maybe change the color of this thing, because then we see there's a smooth transition from one point to the other. But there are other options for this one. You can say smooth color, and it creates a really nice gradient, which again might help for making vector graphics more tangible in case you combine it with a grain later on or something. But this is just the perfect transition for color. And then you can have specific steps as an alternative option. As we see here, those are just too many, and we go down to 20 maybe. That's even quite a lot. And you could say how many steps you want to have from one shape to the other. The orientation means it remains in the same position, just aligned on the tool, on the path, or you have this other option here, align to path, which means they will then just move around a bit. We stick to align to path, and I will just show you in the next second what I mean with this. As I mentioned, again, everything is on this stroke here, so we can just move things around. And as we see, the little hearts are turning around the path we have, whilst usually they would just remain in the same position.
So this feels like when illustration starts to get to a point of just playfulness, because you can just play around and find how it is rather than just manually positioning and setting it. And this is really using just the power of, software to do it for you. That's really cool. The little rotations. I like that.
It's super cool. And you can also create things like that out of just shapes, because this is a circle and we have a square here, which shows how dynamic those things can look if you use the right features. Because if you would have placed all of those things by hand, you would just go nuts. But by using the right effects, you can create something like that, which shows dimension, which has perspective, because that's something people struggle with. But Illustrator helps you by just offering those tools.
Yeah. We've actually got a question here. If you could add the gradient to the lettering, is that something that you would be keen for?
Whose question is that?
Karina.
She knows. She really knows how to ask the right questions. I'm super happy to answer this one because I prepared it up here. You see, right? First option is to have a smooth transition between colors. That's why I showed it is the blend tool. The other thing is the grain. Let me focus quickly. How do we do it? We use this new shape up here, this little star. Select maybe a red color, and I will zoom in. And I have 1 minute for this. So we have one shape. We copy it, Command C, Command E is paste in place. We change the color of this one to blue. And move it a bit, maybe to the front. Arrange, bring to front. So we see we have the blue shape on top of the red one now. This means the gradient we want to have will be in this color. Then we go to Effect, Distort, my favorite section in all the Adobe tools, Distort.
Chaos.
No, we actually go to we go to Texture and say Grain. The options for textures are usually grain or noise in Photoshop. You can just pick whatever it is. In Illustrator, it's grain. So we use this one. And we see here we have the grain option. We can say the intensity of how much grain we'd like to have. For this, usually a good one. And here it's 90. Basically, whatever you have there is good, depending on what you need. Usually I use the Spring Crisp. Today we go for regular. I just say, okay. And then that's Karina's question. We will add, where am I? We have to add a gradient. And there's the gradient tool here. Yeah, there it is. No, I'm probably going about 5 minutes over time, but I think that's okay.
This is fine. We've got another 12 hours to go, apparently.
Okay, so we saw we have grain now. We have a gradient now.
We got offers to order drinks and food, and yeah,
really?
get the snacks. Takeaways incoming, apparently.
Okay. Karina, that's not just for you. You have a shape with a grain, and you have a shape with a gradient. You just copy it, delete it, and then you select this tool again. You go to transparency, because what we do now is we create a transparency mask, new thing. We double click it and say Command B for paste in place. And then we see we have this little gradient on top. The cool thing here is we can say darken, multiply, or whatsoever what we need, and can use that as we know it from all other tools. But that's how you create the gradient on a shape. The cool thing is, again, if you have the gradient here, you could again edit it and just, well, align it the way you need. What I would suggest to figure out, or to just give it a try at some point, is to use the freeform gradient here, because this is what makes it a lot easier. Can we do that now, please, Illustrator? No, it doesn't want me to. Now we can do it. We have this freeform gradient here, because then you can really point where you'd like to have a bit of a highlight or a bit of a darker point.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit of specific control in an effect that you maybe didn't realize. So very cool. Yeah. Very effective.
And definitely go for the transparency mask on this one. Otherwise, you might get lost with masking things. But transparency mask is the way to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Little summary. We had a look at pen tool, brush tool, pencil tool, objects, Pathfinder, how to create a path, and 3 effects: the radial tool, radial repeat, blend tool, and the last thing we looked at were grains and gradients, just to add some texture to the files.
Amazing.
And that's it for now.
The blob tool, and a little bit of a dive into the chaos menu, and yeah.
So you asked for it, so that's the result.
Amazing. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, everyone who's joined and has kept the chat very humorous this afternoon. If you've been following along Adobe Live, we had a lot of technical difficulties last week, but we are starting off smooth, and we are running through, even with some last minute streams. We're still here to have fun and creativity, and thanks everyone for joining us. Melanie, this has been great. We should definitely do more streams again, even if it's just to show option holding on the Pathfinder. That legitimately could be its own little TikTok. Yeah, that is a great one. So no need to thank Captain Obvious. This has been a great little stream, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. What else have we got? We got Off coming up. I say collective we that I'm not involved in. I wish I was, but alas, I have my own plans elsewhere. So next week throughout Adobe Live, we'll be covering Off. Plenty of sessions. We still have sessions for the rest of this week as well, and we will see you all very soon. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'm going to work out how to end the stream now, because I'm in control of it all.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was a blast.
Amazing. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.